So welcome back to Max Out, everybody. I'm so excited today. We have a guest today that founded this little company you've never heard of before. He was the first CEO as well. And we're just real proud of him. He's getting his little business career going. I say that with some humor because this man founded a company called Netflix, which every single one of you is probably a subscriber to by this point. And I want to pick his brain about business, life, leadership. And I can't think of somebody that I'm more excited about talking to. I was telling him off camera, this is going to be a good show for me. So Marc Randolph, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Ed. Thanks for having me. And, I'm sure everyone on the show has heard of Netflix. My real question usually is, how many of you are paying for it?
It's funny you're saying that. My son's away at college, and I was thinking about this last night. Does he have his own Netflix account? Because I hope he does, because, there's that. It's one of the things about the model still that is really fascinating to me, where it's not like the direct TV setup, but you can it goes from house to house with you, correct, still?
Yeah, from the very beginning, we were pretty lax about it because we did not want to be one of those companies who basically figured out all the possible ways you were going to screw us and we're going to prevent it. We said, listen, everyone's basically honest. Let's make it easy to share. Let's recognize the fact you're going to watch it one day in this TV, the other day on this laptop, a third day on your phone. And all these things we do to try and prevent fraud just end up messing with the people who want to be honest.
Yeah, that's definitely a different business approach for sure. So that's not something you heard. I was just listening to Dana White going crazy over pirating on the UFC pay-per-view too. So I'm curious. So I read a tweet of yours. By the way, you guys, he's a great follow on social media. But you said it was 3.5 years in. I want to make sure I say this right. 3.5 brutal years in. You were so excited to pass 500,000 subscribers, right? Which is a big number. I mean, at the time you must have thought, wow, here you go 19.5 years later, 200 million. Was that ever part of the vision? Did you see this ever happening? I mean, I'm just curious, or does it just even blow your mind to this day?
No, it blows my mind. I would have been considered hallucinatory if I had been pitching my friends about, we're going to have 200 million. We're going to be in every country. There's going to be, Netflix and chill. I mean, this was all so completely beyond my comprehension. And don't forget, this is an idea that everybody said that'll never work. I mean, people I pitched, people I tried to get to join the company, my wife said that will never work. So the fact that we not only got it to work, but then after 3.5 years, got to 500,000 subscribers, that alone was a mind blower. But the fact that we are where we are now, that's just crazy.
By the way, that will never work is his Instagram handle as well, which I love and by the way, I love that you just say that because there's a whole bunch of entrepreneurs out there, almost every single one of them, who everyone's telling them that will never work, right? And so I'd love your message about that. I'm curious, I want to ask you some business principle things, but I always look at the other side too. So I'm just fascinated by this. What did Blockbuster not get that you got that made them basically obsolete?
That's an amazing question because everyone wrestles with that. And it's not that they didn't get it. Because listen, they're smart people. They see where the future is going. They knew that we were onto something. It's a question not of insight. It's a question of courage. And for them to have really been successful, to really have pursued this, would have meant basically deprioritizing their existing business model. It would have meant taking their very best engineers, taking them off the business, making them $6 billion a year, and put their best people on something that was going to make $5 or $10 million a year. It would have meant compromising relationships with Hollywood, which was the core to their business. It would have meant pissing off their franchisees. And they just never had the courage to do that. They kept riding it out, hoping somehow, miracle upon miracle, that they'd pull it off. But customers don't give a shit about that stuff. You've got to do what's right for the customer. You can't be worried first and foremost about your business model or your suppliers or how you allocate your internal resources for political reasons.
That's so good. And by the way, those of you that are startup entrepreneurs or smaller ones, that flexibility that you have that maybe some of your bigger competitors don't have is something that you ought to count in the inventory bank of an advantage of yours, of all the disadvantages that you have. Your mobility, your flexibility, your ability to pivot, sometimes when you're smaller, is much easier to point. I'm just also curious.
We shouldn't underestimate that either, because that is what makes this such an amazing business, is that you can have these huge companies with huge assets, huge numbers of employees, but they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be. I mean, it should be impossible for two or three women or men in some small garage somewhere to take down a big company. But the big companies are just lumbering, and they just don't have that ability to change as quickly as you do. It's what makes it so exciting.
Did they ever have the vision or wisdom to approach you about an acquisition and just get you out of the way and swallow you up? And if they did you just have no interest in it?
No, in fact, quite the opposite. Right before we hit that 500,000 subscriber mark, this is about 2.5, maybe 2 years in, we finally had cracked the code and figured out what the business model would be that would work for our business. Mm-hmm. And it was a subscription model. And as you know, the subscription models are wonderful, and that's recurring revenue, but they have a terrible downside is you got to pay all the acquisition cost up front, and then the actual margin leaks in over time. Yep. And we nailed it. And all of a sudden, customers were flying in and money was flying out, but that was not a problem until the dot-com bubble burst. So I'm giving you the setup that you have these small team of people, less than 100 of us, who are crushing it. And then all of a sudden, in a matter of months, are going, we're going to go out of business. We are hemorrhaging because we're bringing on customers so fast. We can't raise more money. And that's when we did this thing that a prudent entrepreneur does, is we said, we're going to sell ourselves. So we reached out to Blockbuster. We finally got the meeting, by 2 months in, because we were a gnat compared to them. Mm-hmm. And we flew to Dallas and we went up into this huge, skyscraper with the cavernous conference room with the endangered hardwood conference table, whatever, and pitched. And it was cool because it was working. We were saying, we'll run this online business. You guys run the stores. We'll find these incredible synergies and we both win. And it was going great. And then they asked that big question, which is how much? And I was there with my co-founder, Reed Hastings, and he had been tapped to make the ask. So he kind of leans in and as confidently as he can goes, $50 million. And they laughed at us, or pretty close. And it was this tremendously humbling moment. Wow. And we were flying back from Dallas back to California. And I remember being crushed because this was going to be that magic, this deus ex machina, as they say in the film and book business, where the heroes are against the cliff and it's going to be, and all of a sudden the hand of God plucks them to safety through some miraculous intervention. But not only was the miraculous intervention not going to come, they were going to compete with us. And in some ways, it was this classic entrepreneurial moment where we recognized that, well, like my dad used to say sometimes, the only way out is through, that we would have to take them down ourselves. And, now that company they could have bought for 50 million is now valued at 250 billion. Oh. And the company, which had at the time 60,000 employees and 9,000 stores, is down to one store.
Oh my God. That right there is one of those things where you go back and rewind this, and I know I'm just talking old school, and you listen to that as one of the most incredible stories of all time, from all different angles. I mean, if you're a small startup entrepreneur and you're like, imagine some of these rejections you're getting being hidden blessings. And if you are one of the bigger ones, to be listening to them. And you're speaking about your dad, you're interesting to me. First off, it's obvious your critical thinking skills and your entrepreneurial spirit, and you guys, Mark's a geology major. Who the heck's a geology major that ends up doing what you've done? But your dad was a nuclear engineer, correct? So your father's a smart man. But I think part of your nature is one of these hidden things that great entrepreneurs do. You really are into what the client wants. And really, one of the things, if you could explain to everybody, you already sort of had a background where you're doing lots of research about the buying patterns, weren't you? Buying behaviors of your existing clients and potential clients. And ultimately that helped sort of create the model itself, did it not? I don't know that enough entrepreneurs think about the client first.
No question about it. I mean, those of you who are actually seeing this can tell that I've been around for a while. And the first half of my career, I was a direct marketing guy. I was a junk mail king. I did catalogs. I did magazine circulation. And all of these things have something in common, which is basically it's selling to someone who you can't see. you're reaching out with either a mailing piece or a mailed catalog or television direct response. It's all the same thing. And it's something that I call remote empathy. It's this ability to figure out what somebody wants or how they're going to react to something you say without seeing them. And this was, 15 years of my career. And my first 3 startups were all direct response companies. But I built this kind of discipline of being able to figure these things out, learn how to test, learn how to analytics, learn the subscription business, learn customer service. And that when I saw the internet starting to rise up, and this is in the mid 90s, I immediately said, oh my God, this is direct marketing on steroids. This is an incredible opportunity to connect directly with customers, to personalize an approach for each customer. And it was the natural precursor to saying, I've got to do e-commerce. And Netflix was just one of, 100 different ideas we had to how to sell something on the internet. But from the very beginning, it was predicated on, I'm going to do something which has an individual connection with every customer. This is not going to ever be one size fits all. And video fit that really nicely because all of us have different tastes, and Hollywood had sprung up with tons of content designed to match that taste, but there was no one really in the middle connecting people with what they wanted to watch.
Unbelievable. I mean, guys, this is a masterclass.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around. If you'd like more, click the videos right here. They're exactly what you need to see next. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and become a part of the Max Out community. And tell me what you think about the videos in the comments below. I read all of them every week, and I select winners that get all kinds of prizes, gear, coaching calls with me. Make a comment.